Hello guys, Sarah here with Teens Read. Now, today I'm here with Dylan, but he's going to be silent, I hope. I'm going to smack you hard. So, today I'm reading Chapter 1 of my new book, Free to Be. Now, I mentioned this in our last video, saying that I would be filming it out off my foot. That was uncomfortable. Okay, now you can lay down.
Oh, just sinking in a hole.
So as I said, yes, last video, I will be reading Chapter 1 of my new book, Free to Be. So, here we go. Just so you know, basic characters. Sadie and Gavin. That comes from their 2 points of view, and they switch points of view for every chapter, just about. So, we're gonna start here. Dylan, put my nail kit down. Why are you... We're gonna start here on Chapter 1. Okay? So, this is about a 12-page chapter, so it will take some time. So, if you don't want to continue listening to this after a certain amount of time, feel free to close out of the video. We're okay with that. Okay? So, Chapter 1, Sadie. I guess it's hard for you to understand our story if you don't know our story. It all started when we were walking these very halls. We used to sit right where you're sitting now. Things changed a lot over the years, though. We'll start by telling you our story, starting from our senior year, I guess. Remember, keep an open mindset. Technically, nothing was fully illegal. Well, except the underage drinking. But that's so common that it isn't even a little funny. So, we're good. Anyways, it all started in August of 2009. Gavin had managed to tell me that he was gay and that he was scared to tell anyone else. It's one of those things where it was expected and common in other places, but where we lived it was basically forbidden. That was mid-July. On the last day of July, Ivory was planning on asking Gavin out. I told him, and he told me to tell her that he was gay. A week into the school year is when it all began. "He's so hot. Why does he have to be gay?" Ivory asked me. She didn't know that Gavin was helping me figure out what was going on. "Gavin is okay, I guess," I muttered quietly. She didn't know how I was feeling about her. "Whatever. You have Noel falling head over heels for you," Ivory replied. The bell that stayed at the end of lunch rang and I smiled. Maybe I wouldn't have to finish this conversation anytime soon. "I'll talk to you later, Ivory," I said, running down the hall. Gavin was supposed to meet me out by his car so that we could go down to the college GSA meeting. I jogged over to the car while unlocking it. Gavin was sitting on the trunk waiting. "Sadie, you're late," Gavin said, hopping off my trunk so I could open it. We threw our bags into the trunk. "Ivory was ranting about how cute you were and then chewed me out for Noel. It's whatever. Throw your stuff in and let's bounce," I said, frowning. I wasn't sure of much, but I knew that if Ivory knew where I was going and who I was with, she would protest. The closest college was at least a 30-minute drive out of town, so normally Gavin and I would leave earlier than we did. But we both had a block of releases after lunch, so we had about 90 minutes to get there, sit in on the meeting, and get back. We lived in a very homophobic town, so we had to be careful not to stand out too much. "I thought that Ivory knew that I was gay. I thought you told her right before she tried to ask me out," Gavin said, getting into the driver's seat. "I had told her. After saying that you were hot, she then asked how you were gay." I couldn't really answer, but then the bell saved me. "Can we just go? I really need to talk to Kane about something," I replied. He didn't know how upset I had been earlier. "Oh, Sadie, how you break my heart," Gavin said, pulling out of the school parking lot. I frowned as I thought about what was going on in my head. Gavin drove us to the college, and we ran into the conference room where the meetings were held. The meeting had already started. I cursed under my breath as Gavin and I took our seats. "As we said last week, today will be all about different sexual orientations and what most of them mean," Hardy said. It must have been his week to conduct the meetings, but I always forgot who ran which meeting. "Before we start, I'd like to say something quickly," Gavin said, standing up. Everyone was silent, waiting for him to speak. "We all know how at the moment being gay is practically forbidden in Olathe. Well, I think that one of the pastors at St. Baptist is thinking of letting up the rule a little bit, but it's still a little weird. I only know this because I overheard my mother talking about it to Pastor Raz the other day," Gavin said. He looked a little annoyed about having to say it that way. Everyone clapped. For Olathe, that was wonderful news. That meant that soon Gavin would be able to come out to his family and friends without being cast as a social outcast. "That's wonderful news. I'd assume Sadie could get more information for us," Hardy said with a curious look on his face. It's possible. I don't know. My father rarely lets news slip from his office, I replied. Hardy frowned a little, but quickly went back to smiling. No matter, we will get equal rights soon enough, he said. The meeting continued as Hardy had planned. I only vaguely listened. I was more off in my own little world thinking about Ivory. I had always liked her. Gavin must have noticed my days, but he didn't say anything about it. Sadie, I'm not sure you'll have time to talk to Kane today. We need to get back to the school, Gavin said when the meeting ended. I nodded. Let's say that tomorrow we're going to the movies and we can work through all of this and maybe meet up with Kane then, I said. Gavin nodded in agreement. I ran over to where Kane and Mail were talking. Sadie, you need something? Mail asked. Kane, I can't talk now because Gavin and I need to hurry to get back to the school on time, but we're going to be in town tomorrow. If there's any way we could get together then to talk, I started. What time? And I'll find a way to get there, Kane said. I'll have Gavin text you, I said, nodding. Gavin was impatiently waiting by the door and frowning. Kane nodded and I ran over to where Gavin was. We are so going to be late, he said as we rushed out to my car. He hopped into the driver's seat and quickly drove us back into Montrose to the school. The bell is about to ring, I said as Gavin parked my car. I popped the trunk and grabbed my bags and keys from Gavin. We'll talk later, Gavin said, smiling. He grabbed his bags and jogged off to Danford's room where he had to work with the school board and plan different dances. I quickly ran over to the band room. Ivory was waiting for me by the door. She seemed extremely pissed off. I actually didn't blame her for her extremely bad attitude. Where the hell were you? I couldn't find you anywhere, she said, grabbing her gym shorts to go change for band practice. I was in town. I had errands to do, I said, if only she really knew. We got over to the locker room and saw that every stall was full. Ivory didn't care, though. She just started stripping in the middle of the locker room. No one really noticed my glance over at her perfect body. She had more of a dancer's build and was well defined. She was mostly muscle, no fat. She was gorgeous. I couldn't help myself, and I must have been blushing. By the time practice was done, my shoulders were burning, and Ivory was complaining to anyone who would listen. Gavin stood on the edge of the field waiting for me. Once we were good to go for the day, I rolled up my flags and put my rifle and saber into my flag bag. So during student government, I heard Em say that you were a total prude, Gavin sighed. Lovely. She knows that I'm with Noel, right? I asked him. She said that since the two of you haven't ever kissed, you're prude, Gavin said, grabbing my flag bag. We walked into the band room still talking. Gavin, long time no talk, Ivory said, bumping into us. Hey, Ive, Gavin said. I grabbed my flute as Noel came in. Sadie, I haven't seen you all day, he grumbled, trying to hug me. I need to finish grabbing my things so that I can leave. Sorry, love, but a hug can wait until Monday, I said, darting around. Gavin looked over and rolled his eyes. I grabbed my clarinet and music. Gavin traded me my backpack for my flute and smiled at Noel. Sorry, Noel, Sadie and I have plans, Gavin said, flashing Noel a big smile. I was trying to think of what Gavin meant by plans. All we had planned was driving to work, then splitting up until 9 when we'd drive home. I yawned, already beat. I nodded and walked out of the band room towards my car. Gavin had taken my keys and had opened the car. I threw my stuff into the trunk and yawned again. I loved working at the library, but when I was dead beat and wasn't sure if I could handle working with the little children that night. I got into the passenger seat and decided to kick back in the seat and nap until Gavin got out to the car. Sadie, you have to go to work, Gavin said, shaking me awake a while later. How long was I asleep? I asked him. The entire ride here, he said as if it was no big deal. I yawned and nodded. I got out of the car and we walked into the library. Gavin worked with the technology department and I worked with the children in the children's department. We went into the break room and signed in. I went to check the circulation desk to see what all needed shelved. I grabbed the carts that were waiting and went over to the children's section where I would be shelving them. There weren't many people, but the elementary schools still had about 20 minutes until their final bells. I shelved what few books had already come in and waited for the children. While I was working on straightening up some shelves, Mail walked in. Hello, sir. How may I assist you today? I asked him, coming out of the shelves. I'm trying to help out a friend of mine, he said, looking at a note from someone. I recognized the messy handwriting, knew that either Gavin was up to something or that Gavin was about to start something big. Of course, what is it you're looking for? I asked him, and he still hadn't looked up. I'm looking for 2 different books. One is called Queer, and the other is called GLBTQ, he said, reading the note. Of course, let me check the computer database and see where those would be. I got on the computer and looked up the 2 books. Do you know the authors of the books by any chance? We have quite a few books with titles that are similar to those, but we don't have any with those titles. I don't know the authors. Damn it, Gavin needed those by tomorrow. Male groaned. I can check and see if we can pull them from another library, but that takes a few days for them to come in, I said. I needed to give them to my friend tonight. Whatever, I'm sure he can do without them, Male said. Well, I can always try and see if they're at a different branch within 60 miles, I told him. Male finally looked up. Oh, crap. I didn't realize it was you, Sadie. Forget about it. I don't need them. Forget that I mentioned Gavin. Let's just forget about this, Male said. Male, it's okay. I already knew that Gavin was up to something. I just didn't expect him to get you involved, I told him. He told me not to tell you, Male replied. I figured as much. How about this? I'll call Gavin up here and we can talk as a group, I smiled. No, I don't want him to know I ran into you. It would be weird, Male said. It suddenly hit me. You like Gavin? I asked him. I asked him out a few weeks ago and he said yes, he replied. I don't know how surprised I looked, but Male just laughed. That's chapter 1 of Free to Be, which is my new novel. So check it out online. I will post the link to the PDF Kindle version below, and you can totally check it out. It's free, easy to use, and enjoy.